Welcome, everyone. We will be covering a framework for assessing the SCE compensation program, an overview of payment categories related to standing homes and soil contamination, a walkthrough of an SCE fast pay offer example worksheet, a preview of Andrew King's compensation calculator spreadsheet, and more. Leading us tonight, we have Andrew Wessels, who is an Eaton Fire survivor, VP of Strategy and Operations at Revine Publishing, and Strategy Director for the Eaton Fire Survivors Network, EFSN. He co-authored Fix What You Broke, the community report on Edison's compensation plan. We also have Krista Copland, who is an Eaton Fire survivor from Altadena and founder of Surviving Structures Eaton Fire Recovery Facebook page. She also co-authored EFSN's Fix What You Broke. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Andrew and Krista.
Thanks. Thank you, everybody, for coming this evening. I want to give a little disclaimer here that Andrew and I are not lawyers, and you should absolutely seek legal counsel when deciding whether or not to take this route. But as Jane went over kind of what we'll discuss today, we do hope to have you much more confident and comfortable in what this entails and how it relates to you as someone with a standing home, whether an owner or a tenant. We'll cover both sides of that. And yeah, I guess, Andrew, why don't you take us away?
And thank you so much, everyone, for coming tonight, and really excited to be here and kind of chat through this and hopefully provide some guidance and some answers. Again, like Krista mentioned, neither one of us is a lawyer, so we're not providing legal advice here. Kind of the goal is to just help get a little bit better understanding of what's going on with this compensation program. What's in it, kind of at a high level. How does it affect each of us as survivors, and specifically standing home survivors? And then kind of a framework. How are we going to kind of manage kind of making a decision here, understanding it, and then making a decision. So I will just kind of, note I'm a survivor as well. I'm a standing home survivor with, toxic damage inside our home. So this specific topic is very personal to me. In addition to having spent a lot of time, really researching and trying to understand this compensation program. So I want to start by kind of providing a basic framework for assessing this program. We're going to get into the details in a minute about what is in the program, but I wanted to start here with how do you even decide kind of if this program is going to work for you. And so I've kind of broken this down into 4 basic considerations, and I'll kind of chat through each of these for a moment. There's your actual costs. There's your expected insurance coverage, your personal risk tolerance, and then how long you can wait for a payout. So the first thing that you really need to do before you kind of enter this program is estimate or measure in whatever way that you can what your actual kind of damage is, what your actual costs are because of the Eaton Fire. And this runs kind of across a wide range of economic costs, as I think we all know at this point, whether that's your additional living expenses, the cost of repairing and remediating your home, the cost of repairing and remediating the rest of your property, the soil, the landscaping, your yard, your personal property, things like vehicles that might have been damaged or destroyed. There's just kind of a wide range of actual kind of economic costs that we've entailed because of the Eaton Fire. And for many of us, we're already doing this to some degree for insurance purposes. But I want to take a moment that many of the costs that we're accruing because of the Eaton Fire actually go beyond what insurance covers. The classic one that I think is a significant one for many of us with standing homes is our yards. That some people are getting their yards tested for lead and other toxins and discovering high levels of contaminants. But as many of us have also learned, we might have insured our house, but we did not insure the dirt outside of our house. And so that's a potential cost that we're not really, some of us aren't actively thinking about, or we're only starting to actively think about. So that first bit is just, what are your total costs? What are you actually paying or going to need to pay because of the Eaton fire? The next thing that you're going to want to look at is your expected insurance coverage. I know many of us, myself included, I had a phone call with my adjuster today. Many of us are still in the process of figuring out what insurance will actually pay for. So it's probably not what our actual insurance coverage is going to be at the end, but we can at least estimate. We need to estimate, what are we going to actually get from insurance? So we need to see, what are our costs and what is our expected insurance coverage. And you could also add in any additional revenue that you might get if you know that you're going to get FEMA, if you have other kind of sources of kind of support in addition to insurance. And that allows you to see, this is how much I'm losing because of the Eaton fire, and this is how much I am expecting to get to support that. And so that gives you kind of what is your kind of economic delta, the difference of that you need to kind of make yourself whole. Make yourself, your home, your stuff, all those things, make yourself whole. The third part of this framework is your personal risk tolerance. As many of us know, with standing homes, there's toxins in our home. And what we also know is that kind of everyone approaches this topic with a different kind of perspective on risk. And that can be for reasons such as, you might have a baby in your home. You might have particular health concerns that make your kind of personal risk tolerance different than someone else's. And so you want to take a moment and really think about your personal risk tolerance, because again, as we know, with insurance and with a lot of these processes we're going through, there's differences of opinion about what is reasonable amounts of toxins and what's unreasonable amounts of toxins, what should be tested for, what shouldn't be tested for. And with this Edison compensation plan, this is, because this is another source of providing making you whole for your actual costs. This is where you really want to think through your personal risk tolerance in terms of, testing your home, kind of all of these things, and whatever that answer happens to be for you and your household. And there to kind of really understand, what is it going to take to get you back in your home where you feel safe and that it's healthy for you and that it is actually habitable, right? Our insurance companies are going to have one definition of habitable, but this is a chance where you get to think through a little bit more. What is your definition of habitable? And then the last kind of big thing you're going to want to ask yourself is, when do you need this money? Many of us through the community are kind of coming to the end of our additional living expenses, and we're kind of facing a cliff. Or for many of us, many people who are tenants, that ALE ran out a long time ago and are facing kind of elevated rents in the area because of the fire. So a lot of people in our community are kind of facing, we need this money soon. And the SCE compensation program at least suggests that this is a faster way to get money. It is called fast pay. So I think, one of the questions I get is this something that can, help me make rent? If I do this, will this pay my rent next month? So one thing I want to note is fast is relative. We're going to talk a little bit about the options. There's fast pay, detailed review, and litigation. Litigation is long. That's going to be 2, 3, maybe 4 years if you go down that path. The detailed review is a 9-month process. So that's faster than litigation, but that's still not very fast. The fast pay option promises to give you an offer in 90 days and then pay you out 30 days after you've signed all the papers and had them notarized. So this is potentially a 120-day delay between when you submit and when you actually receive those funds. It could be faster potentially, but that's kind of the timeline that they gave: 90 days to review your application, 30 days to pay it out. So if someone's looking at this and saying, I need December rent, January rent, this is not like a program that will kind of necessarily support that situation. But it is something that kind of, when you're thinking about um, how to assess this compensation program, when do you need this money? How long can you wait for a payout um, there? Um, I wanted to kind of take a moment to talk about kind of shift us to actually talking about the program itself. So the program itself determines eligibility based off of a map, and it is this map here. And basically, it is a 2-zone map. Zone 1 is this kind of red blob, and then Zone 2 is this kind of bluish purple that's kind of just to the south. Zone 1 is basically that, what we call the DINS map, that map that kind of we were all checking, immediately after the fire to kind of figure out what happened to our homes. They took that map and they extended it out approximately 400 feet. And that determines the boundary of Zone 1. Zone 1 is for a standing home. It basically just kind of automatically qualifies everyone in Zone 1 for a number of payout categories. Just by virtue of being in the zone, there's kind of a presumption of damage. Zone 2 is something that Edison claims that they analyzed smoke plumes and identified areas that had damage because of smoke plumes. And that's this kind of extension here. We're not really exactly sure how they determined that. I tried to get that information. But in Zone 2, you become eligible for aspects of the program, but there's a little bit more paperwork and kind of documentation that you have to do to prove damage. So there's the Zone 1, there's a presumption of damage. In Zone 2, there's a possibility that you might have had damage according to Edison's protocol. Okay, so I talked about when we kind of go through some of the key terms that are used in this compensation program. I'd mentioned a moment ago these two big categories of fast pay and detailed review. So the compensation protocol actually has there's two protocols in here. One is fast pay. That's this one where it's you can get your money potentially in 120 days or a little bit less. And then detailed review is a longer process. That's potentially a 9-month process. So I'll kind of quickly run through the differences between each of these. Fast pay is a simple process with few steps and limited documentation. To some degree, it's you just kind of prove who you say you are, prove that you live where you say that you live, and then provide a little bit more documentation beyond that. But it's a pretty simple process that can be completed oftentimes in less than an hour. I've had a friend go through the process and confirm that he did it in about 35 or 40 minutes. You're supposed to get an offer within 90 days after submitting your complete claim, and SCE reviews your documentation and uses what they call formula-based calculations to determine kind of the money that you get. And we're going to look at that in a little bit, what exactly that means. But basically, at this point, what this means is that you're not really telling SCE your personal situation at all, that there's a pretty basic formula. For example, 2 people lived in the house, so you get this amount of money. So it's a simple formula-based calculation. Some categories are offset by insurance. This means that if you receive insurance, if you have insurance and you've received a payout from insurance, you might get less or none of that category. If your insurance, if what you receive from insurance is greater than that, what you would receive in that category from SCE. And this is a fairly standard process here. It's required to ensure that none of this money is taxable, right? That you can't get paid twice for the same damage, because then you're not being made whole anymore. So that's the idea behind that. Many of the categories, however, are not reduced by insurance. We'll see some of those for us in the standing homes, and these are fixed amount categories. And again, this is designed to provide a quick, predictable compensation offer. You will be able to calculate it yourself, and you should be able to calculate it accurately yourself and understand what you're going to get from FastPay before you even put in the application. Detailed review is a more detailed process. This is a comprehensive document-heavy evaluation where you start telling SCE, this is what I actually lost. These are the actual economic damages. One thing to note here is that non-economic damages do not change in the detailed review. In FastPay, they've determined some fixed amounts for non-economic damage, and no matter what actual damages you have, they will not review or change your non-economic damages. And this is important because if you do actually have significant damage above and beyond and a significant kind of challenges above and beyond what SCE is kind of assuming in FastPay, that will not come in here. So, for example, SCE assumes that you were displaced for 6 months as a standing home for FastPay. And so part of your non-economic damage is actually based off of the annoyance of being displaced for 6 months. So even if you prove that you've been displaced for more than 6 months, they will not apply that additional annoyance to your non-economic damages. SEC reserves the right to do an in-person property inspection. Basically, they're going to approach this similar to how our insurance companies do. They're going to do their due diligence on every little detail of your documentation. And you're just going to need, you can't give summaries, you can't give, just general letters. You're going to need, just really deep, kind of, again, similar to insurance, just really, really kind of formal, deep documentation. It will take about 9 months after you have a complete application for SCE to respond. And all of your losses here will be offset by insurance. So you have to, again, going back to the beginning, if you have $200,000 of damages and you've received $180,000 of insurance, they're going to remove that $180,000 that you've received, and you'll receive $20,000 in that situation at the end. Okay, I'm going to hand this over to Krista to keep going.
All right, so just a quick review. The insurance offset, a little more terminology. Andrew's kind of covered this, but that's basically when a settlement payout is reduced by whatever your insurance costs. We'll get into this more specifically for standing homes in the next slides. And then also just wanted to touch on loss of use, right? This is generally the amount that you get when you're not able to use your home. So whether it's the rent, your food and expenses when you're at hotels. Do want to note, honestly, the amounts are so undervalued, plus these are offset by insurance. So I'd be very surprised if many standing homes would actually qualify in receiving loss of use money. For example, a home with a pre-fire value of $1.2 million, they have calculated that the annual fair rental value for a home is you take that value and divide it by 30. So then the monthly fair rental value for a $1.2 million home is that divided by 12, which is $3,333. And so standing home owners, unfortunately, standing home tenants are not eligible for any loss of use. But homeowners would be eligible for 6 months of loss of use. So that'd be like $19,000. And if you've received money from insurance, that is deducted from that almost $20,000. So just to give an idea there. Okay, next slide. So I'm going to go over like a roadmap of the various payment categories. And you see really throughout these slides, there's page numbers. So if you want to go to the protocol, you can get more information, more details. It kind of helps reference where you can find more information. So standing homes within this protocol is referenced as non-burn damage from soot, smoke, or ash. So they're damaged homes, non-burn damage from soot, smoke, or ash. Economic loss is the first one described. So this includes if you have a destroyed secondary structure, rebuilding that, personal property, repair remediation, landscaping, and loss of use. So owners can find more information on page 18, tenants on page 21. Andrew's going to get into the amounts when we go over the worksheets. You'll be able to see that, and it just provides kind of more context. Unfortunately, again, with tenants, the only really economic loss for them is the personal property. Non-economic loss are personal impacts that are not financial in nature. So this is not something that you've had to pay for in order to repair or replace. This could be, the trauma, the emotional toll of it. It also includes like the nuisance. And this is actually how Edison justifies children getting less than adults, is they're saying that the non-economic loss includes all of the time and the nuisance of having to deal with like insurance and paperwork, and that adults are the ones who handle that. And so that is why adults are getting more than kids in this, even though many of us argued after the draft protocol that came out that children have a lifetime of trauma from this. That did not change, along with many other things that we suggested. Direct pay is additional compensation for settling through this program. So they basically see this as kind of additional funds given to you for costs that may not be covered in the economic and non-economic losses. For example, like Andrew mentioned with the soil contamination, one of the FAQs in the compensation program is, do you cover out-of-pocket costs like debris removal and soil remediation? And basically their answer is that the direct claim premium can be used at your discretion. And so in essence, that's how they're covering it. That's also their reply for like vehicles and different things like that that are not included in the economic loss. There's also attorney's fees, which 10% of the net economic and non-economic damages, 10% of that is added on to the top, so that if you do use an attorney to complete the paperwork, then that is in addition to those net costs that could be given to the attorney. Next slide.
Okay. So I'll go in here and we'll look. So Edison provided, they didn't provide a tool for people to kind of figure out what to expect from this compensation program, but they did provide kind of these examples, so to speak. So we'll kind of walk through two of them. One for an owner of a smoke damaged home, and then the other for a tenant of a smoke damaged home. We can kind of see how this starts to kind of come together. Oh yeah, Krista, would you drop the links to these?
Yeah.
I think someone just asked for that.
I'll put the
So So we'll just kind of go through here. So you can see the first kind of category here. So first, this is the owner of a non-burn damaged, smoke, soot, or ash damaged home with damaged landscaping. Owner occupied, single family residence, 2 adults and 2 children. The only quote unquote damage to the structure is this smoke damage. There is also landscaping damage, and the property was valued at $1.2 million before the fire. And this one was submitted by an attorney. I should note, because I don't think we mentioned this, you're not required to use an attorney to go through this program, but you can use an attorney. So this person this example person used an attorney. It's also important to note that this person had $40,000 of insurance coverage, $30,000 of personal property coverage. They received $10,000 and did not receive $20,000. And then $10,000 of loss of use coverage, so ALE.
And
So
before we continue, sorry, one question coming up is this theoretical for a zone 1, zone 2, or does it make a difference?
So it is not clear here if this is zone 1 or zone 2. The difference is that someone in zone 1 does not have to prove damage to their home and does not have to prove landscape damage. If you are in zone 1, you are automatically assumed to have damage that qualifies you for your structure and damage that qualifies you for landscaping. If you are in zone 2, you do have some additional documentation that you need to provide to show that damage. So you're not presumed to have the damage. You are just allowed to submit that damage. There. So this doesn't make it clear. We just know that the person either is in zone 1 or does have documented damage, one of those two. So because the person has a primary structure with non-burn damage, they receive $10,000 for their structure and their personal property. So in this protocol, your structure and personal property are smushed into one category, and it's a flat $10,000. This person, because they're either in zone 1 or have documented landscaping damage, receive $10,000 as a flat amount for landscaping damage. So the property damage then, comes to $20,000. There is no insurance offset for this category because these are flat amounts that are not based off of any kind of documented damage. There's just an assumption here of $10,000 of additional damage, basically. Then we go down to loss of use. For this person, the formula that Krista shared comes out to $3,333 per month, which they kind of round up. It's not quite $20,000, but it's approximately $20,000 of expenses that Edison assumes. Then you subtract the loss of use that the person received there, which was $10,000 of loss of use insurance offset. So that means that the person receives $10,000 from this category. Then there's non-economic damages. These, again, for standing homes are flat rates, $20,000 per adult, $10,000 per child, which nets out to $60,000 for the family for non-economic damages. There's then a $10,000 direct claim premium. This is, again, a flat rate. It is per residential property, so it does not scale by the number of people in your home or anything like that. It's just per property. And then because this person had an attorney, the attorney receives a 10% fee for their services, which is $90,000. So at the end of this person would receive at the end of the offer $109,000 9,000 of which will go to the attorney. So this family, after the attorney takes that cut, will receive $100,000. I'll go back to trying to go back to see if I can find the link over here because it's not loading anymore. Okay, here's the tenant one. Okay. So we'll do this again for the tenant. I'll go a tiny bit faster. It lets me zoom in. It's not. So this is a tenant with non-burn damage and damaged landscaping. The primary structure received smoke damage. The landscape has burn damage. The pre-fire property was $1.2 million, and again was submitted by an attorney. Um, oh my. So this person, for personal property loss, it presumes $5,000 per person for personal property damage. There are 2 adults and 2 children in this home, so that means that this household will receive $20,000 to cover the cost of their personal property. There's no insurance offset because this is a flat rate. The non-economic damages are exactly the same as a standing home. So this is $20,000 per adult and $10,000 per child for residing in a household that receives smoke damage. So that nets out to $60,000. Again, there's no insurance offset. And the direct claim premium is $5,000 per adult for tenants occupying residential property with non-burn damage. So that would be a $10,000 payment. Sure why this is not letting me scroll down. Let me try to get over here. Okay, there we go. And then finally, attorney fees. Again, the attorney gets a 10% cut, which in this instance would go out to $8,000. So the final payment to this family, to this tenant, would be $98,000. $90,000 of which the tenant would retain. Let's go back to here. Okay. I'm gonna hand it over to you, Krista, and then I'll look at some of these questions too.
Perfect. I was trying to answer them and realized, I think, Jane, we need to be co-hosts in order to reply to the questions.
Okay, I'll take care of that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Thank you. And then, Andrew, could you open the link to Andrew's? Thank you. So this is a recovery compensation program tool made by Andrew King. One of the most important things to know about it is that before you start plugging your numbers in, you want to make your own copy. So if you're on a computer, if you go to File, you can make a copy from the drop down. If you're on your phone, I feel like this would be really hard to do, but generally there's like 3 dots up at the top that you can click in order to make a copy. If you are an owner of a standing but damaged property, including smoke, ash, fire, then you go to the tab here that is open, and you'll notice the one next to it is for renters. And that includes smoke damaged homes as well. So he's made this really easy, and it's a way to try and get an estimate of the amount that you will receive, similar to what Andrew just went over for the worksheet, but you're able to plug in your own information. A lot of the standing home payments do not have the insurance offsets. But if you are rebuilding a structure, that's why there's the information here for like your insurance coverage for the dwelling. And landscaping is also, I believe, an offset along with the loss of use. So that's what this beginning part is for. The residents below that, you just enter in the number of adults and children in the residence, saying as that will help compute what the non-economic and direct pay claims are going to be. And then you basically just go over to the next column and enter in the appropriate information for your situation. It has all the formulas to tally it all up and let you know what it is that you should be eligible for. I think so. We will. Okay, perfect. So the link is also in the chat so that you're able to get to it later. And I think just really to wrap this up, and then we can kind of address more of the questions. As you mentioned, so Andrew and I, along with Joy Chan from the Eaton Fire Survivors Network, drafted the response to Edison's draft proposal of this, saying basically what was missing. And then after this file came out, Andrew and Joy really put together an analysis of the final plan, which is they didn't fix what they broke. And that's up on the website. I am planting these seeds and we'll hope to have more information to follow up with everybody later. But some portions of settlement proceeds are taxable. It's kind of confusing, not all, but pieces of it. But the easiest way to make sure we are not taxed on the settlement proceeds, whether it's from this litigation with SCE settlements or even bad faith settlements, if you have to go after your insurers, is to make sure that current laws in place which exempt settlement income from wildfire disasters, which run out in 2026. There's currently legislation in place to extend that through like 2032 or something like that. So we want to be sure that all of our representatives sign on to that and make sure that that gets passed. We'll trying to figure out a way to kind of a better coordinated effort and easy ways to do that. So more information on that to come. But right now, I think we can kind of turn to the Q&A and see what we can address there. Let's see. So the FAQ does talk about the insurance deductible. Basically, they say that typically you get deductibles back when insurance companies agree to a settlement amount and pay your insurance claim. So the program helps to offset out-of-pocket costs like insurance deductibles. However, it does not provide specific payments for them.
Oh, I think that is, well, what is the source in determining the pre-fire value of the house? Edison has a formula, and you have to use their formula if you do fast pay. And I believe detailed review provides it's unclear what exactly is in detailed review, but I think in theory you could provide evidence that their formula is incorrect and potentially it would be reevaluated. But if you want to have potential control over how that valuation is determined, that would have to go through litigation, is my understanding. Just kind of at a high level, any formula or anything like that in fast pay is non-negotiable. There's no negotiation in fast pay. There you're just using what the formulas and the values that Edison has determined.
There's another question. So even if insurance covered remediation for smoke damage and a homeowner was displaced, yet the home is not in any zone, so not in zone 1 or 2, this payout is a moot point. Am I correct? And yes, unfortunately, if you are not within zone 1 or zone 2, then this SCE compensation protocol will not apply, even though you probably have spent a lot on testing and remediation and have been displaced, unfortunately.
So can I say a couple words on that? Please, people, keep in mind, this is SCE's offering for a settlement. This, whether or not you're in their zone 1 or zone 2, which zone 2, no one seems to be clear on how they delineated that. This does not prevent you from seeking your own litigation. I think many of us here recognize the cost of remediation is much greater than what they are offering any standing home. We are all going through different insurance challenges, many of which include difficulty getting proper testing. In some cases, it's not getting clearance in your post-remediation testing or not getting any post-remediation testing. And so you have to pay for that yourself. And then finding your home's still contaminated to some degree and your insurance may not be interested in doing another round of remediation. So all of these costs, right, that are amounting up for staying homes in different capacities, none of this settlement seems to meet the cost that many of us are putting out. So if you're not in zone 1 or zone 2, do not let that prevent you from seeking compensation outside of this offering. This offering may not be what you want anyway.
I mean, one thing to note, and there's a couple really great questions that came up kind of related to this, a lot of these that I want to hit. But everyone has the option of litigation. So everyone has 4 options. You can do nothing. I hope nobody chooses that. I guess the one piece of advice that I will give today is don't do that. If you're in zone 1 or 2, you have the option of fast pay or detailed review, or litigation, and everyone has the option of litigation, right? So this is a choice. One question that just came in that's super important: if we take the fast pay offer, does that prevent us from filing a lawsuit in the future? Yes. Yes, you are if you sign and accept the settlement, you are waiving all legal right to sue for any reason into the future, and your heirs do not have the right to sue Edison. This includes for future health concerns as well. So you are signing away if you accept fast pay or detailed review, you are signing away all ability to ever sue again in the future. So that you are saying, I am done with this. So this is a settlement offer, basically. So you don't have to abandon your law firm. Your attorney can guide you through this process as well, but you will be abandoning litigation. You'll be making a specific choice there. And then I also want to hit one thing on detailed review that's kind of come up in a couple questions. So detailed review, if you can show that you have damages above what fast pay offers you and SCE agrees, then you can get more. One thing I want to note is that Edison did commit to, if you go through detailed review and your offer is less in detailed review than it was in fast pay, they have committed to fast pay being the minimum that you would get. So if you get your fast pay offer, go into detailed review, all of a sudden insurance pays out another like $30,000 and you're suddenly getting less money, they will just give you the fast pay offer. So that's your kind of bottom level there.
There's a question about, do you have information on pool damage and compensation? They talk about damaged structures, but pools fall into other structures, and it's outside of what they've listed for economic loss in this protocol. And Andrew, I don't have a sense that detailed review would change that. Do you have?
Detailed review, I think, would potentially. So again, the protocol doesn't really go into what detailed review is, but I think that's because everyone's detailed review is going to be so different. Detailed review is going to be really similar to the process with insurance, right? Where there's going to be inspections, there's going to be, an 80, 90, 100, 150 page, estimates of work and scopes of work, things like that. So my assumption is that if you can show damage to your pool, then that would be included in there in some way, because that is damage to your property. But it's really unclear how they're going to go about doing that. Yeah, we didn't get notice to evacuate, fought the fire in the middle of the night. What about damages related to that trauma? That will not be taken into consideration for fast pay or detailed review. You will get the $5,000 or $10,000 or 20, whatever that flat rate is, no matter what happened to you, just by virtue of what your home was classified as. And again, there's a question about what about future health concerns. If you take fast pay or detailed review, you will be signing away any ability to sue for future health consequences. The 6 months of loss of use need to be documented. No, it's just assumed. For fast pay, it's assumed that you were displaced for 6 months. If you go into detailed review, that is where you would start having to document things like that. So if you were actually displaced for 2 months, then you would have only 2 months of quote unquote costs at that point.
There's a question in the Q&A. And if possible, if you can use the Q&A so we just have kind of one place to check, it just makes it easier so we can hit the questions. Laura says, you've mentioned a couple times that some parts of the SCE offer are offset by the amount of insurance paid. But my understanding is that those categories are offset by the policy limits regardless of what was actually paid out by insurance. Can you please clarify? And yes, so kind of two separate things. One is that a lot of the payment categories for standing homes specifically do not have insurance offsets. The insurance offsets are primarily for rebuilding and for loss of use when it comes to standing homes. And then also, if there is an insurance offset, you're correct that it's not just what insurance has paid you, but it's what you have insurance coverage for. So it may not even be funds that you have accepted or that they have given to you, but the fact that it's possible for them to pay that to you, they're looking at your total coverage for that.
Yeah, and want to know, there's a question about kind of I know we're not doing specific instances, but it was kind of hypothetical. If there's 100,000 in damages, insurance pays out 20,000. Does the 20,000 insurance offset apply, and I get zero for property damage? No, because for standing homes, there is no insurance offset for property damage. If you went into detailed review, those things would start coming into consideration there. Will the ability to submit a request for settlement expire? Yes, I'm going to let Krista do that because she actually was the one who looked it up, so I can't claim to be the one who found that one.
So they say that this program is planned to run, they'd use the word planned, but planned to run through November 30th, 2026. So there's plenty of time to talk with lawyers and figure out which is the best route for you.
Let's see. Well, SCE consider repairs that are not submitted to insurance. That's not for fast pay. Fast pay, they don't care about anything. Detailed review, unclear. That's you want to talk to a lawyer. But one thing you need to note that detailed review is still kind of totally in the hands of Edison. It is not a legal. It's not mediation. It's not where there's two parties of legal kind of standing discussing there. So unclear, but definitely not for fast to pay. There's a question about the use of the DINS map. So the original draft, Edison's draft, only used the DINS map as the sole source for determining everything. The current map is sort of using the DINS map, but then kind of like expanding, putting little ruffles around it. Many people, including Krista and myself, have actually sat down face to face with Edison and told them exactly, Jeff, what you've shared in the chat. But no, they don't seem to really care.
Can I ask a quick question about the detailed review? If you decide that you want to submit for the detailed review and then you aren't happy with what they come back with as an offering, you are not obligated to move forward, correct?
No, with none of this. You can submit fast pay and then just not take it. You can then submit detailed review and then not take it and still go to litigation. By submitting in the program, you are not waiving any legal rights. Once you accept the payment, that's when you waive your legal rights. But you are not obligated to take anything until you sign, notarize, and send that letter back in accepting the payment.
And someone brought up a comment just now that I was actually going to ask. Is there concern about the disclosures that you give to SCE in this process, whether it be fast pay or detailed review, be used as evidence against you in any way in the future if you decide that you do not want to go with either offer?
They do say in the FAQ that it is only being used. I mean, I don't know. I guess you could take it with a grain of salt. But in the FAQs, they do say it is only being used for a calculation for this settlement agreement and will not be used for anything else.
Okay.
And find the language.
That's again, a different way of thinking about personal risk tolerance from that early slide. But let's see. What is the criteria to determine the number of adults, children impacted by the fire? I believe you just have to show that they live there.
At the time of the fire, though, right?
Yeah, at the time of the fire. Yeah. So if someone's away at college, that's there. That, again, I would talk to a lawyer about what it means to be a resident somewhere. Because certainly if someone was just away for the week, on vacation, that would be one. So I'm not sure about that specific situation. That would be a great question to ask the lawyer, and to understand both what that would be and then what documentation would be required. Yeah.
Actually, so there was a question about Zone 1. I think I answered this wrong in the typing, but it says in Zone 1, is a detached garage considered a separate structure with regards to smoke damage, a detached garage, or would separate structure only be an ADU? Actually, I'm drawing a blank. A garage.
So, again, this is, this is probably a little bit beyond our advice abilities. It's not clearly delineated in the protocol what is and isn't a separate structure. Many kind of many detached garages are considered structures, but it's there's some gray area in there depending on how it's built as well. So yeah, I'm not 100%.
Yeah.
I think
It does have on page 18 accessory dwelling unit or detached garage. So I think that.
Yeah, I know insurance is handled. I've been talking to some people that it's like if insurance thinks like it's not a totally enclosed and if it's not kind of a usable structure for storing things, then they're not. Then they count. Then they a lot of places are counting it as like a shed more than anything, or kind of like I can't remember the name of the garage. It's not doesn't have sides and things. That it's more of just a roof. Um, so I think there's some devil in the details there. Do you know if anyone has actually received an offer in Zone 2? No one has received an offer yet from Edison. They just started taking applications about a week and a half ago. So nobody has received an offer yet in Zone 1 or Zone 2. Let's see. What are the possible legal risks of signing up? I'm not sure exactly the legal risks so much as the if you accept fast pay or detailed review, you waive your legal rights to sue in the future. So I don't know if there's any legal risks for doing it. There is just you're giving up some legal rights. Again, if you go through litigation to get the money at the end of litigation, you will be signing a similar piece of paper. So that waiving of rights is a standard part of at some point in the process of closing the claim and closing the case. But
One thing you could do is talk to an attorney,
yeah,
right?
it's-
So I believe that my understanding in speaking to some insurance litigation attorneys that just like SCE had an open meetings with stakeholders, they also did the same for litigation insurance attorneys, and they talked them through and answered questions about uh, their draft offering last month. So you could speak to an insurance litigation attorney and just ask, what 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 concerns should I have if I am entering in on exploring these offers, whether or not I go through with it, and then if I do go through it, what am I potentially leaving off the table for myself? Like Andrew and Krista said, health implications could really be a thing. So these are things to consider. And I want to quickly say how grateful I am to Krista and Andrew for taking the time to walk us through this, but also the time that they put into having discussions with SCE as well. I mean, this, I'm sure, was quite a project. And the discussions they had took a considerable amount of thought and effort. And whatever this offering is, as said, you didn't fix what you broke. I'm sure this is a better settlement than probably what it would have been otherwise. So I just want to acknowledge you both and Joy for the time that you put into these discussions, as well as the time that you're giving us now. And that being said, by no means are Andrew and Krista attorneys. And that, of course, means, thinking about what the larger ramifications might be of any particular choice. And that's really where an attorney discussion might do you some good for larger insight.
Right. And I know it's 8:00. I just I just put it in the chat, but I was was going to type a reply to Jennifer in the Q&A and actually accidentally hit answer live, but she wanted to clarify that she was saying she had $100,000 in smoke and ash damage to the house, and insurance pays out $20,000 for abatement. Does a $20,000 insurance offset still apply? And I get $0 for damage to the structure. So I just want to kind of go back over for homeowners. If you go to page 18 of the protocol, that's where it lists out what you would be getting. And for standing homes with non-burn damage, it is a flat $10,000 that you get for remediation. It does not matter how much you paid. And I know none of us only paid $10,000 for remediation.
That's like one round of testing.
Yeah, if that.
Yeah.
All right. It is 8:05, and we did say this would be an hour-long presentation. So unless there's one last burning question, this is probably the time to start wrapping up. I want to thank you all for being here again tonight. I know we have a lot on our plates before heading into the holidays. I'm glad you were all able to make it, hear this presentation. Again, I'm very grateful to Andrew and Krista for walking us through this and all the time they put into discussions with SCE prior to even having an analysis on this proposal, along with Joy. Definitely want to acknowledge Joy as well and all the advocacy that she does. With that, I will just remind folks that EFRU is continuing to take test reports. We did recently put out our post-remediation map and our findings. On Wednesday this week, that's the 19th of November, we will be presenting a full scope of our findings that we showed to the Smoke Claims and Remediation Task Force, as well as Department of Public Health, DTS, and Office of Emergency Services, Supervisor Barger's office, Senator Perez's office, and Assemblymember Harabedian's office before we even brought it to the public. So, but we're going to do a deep dive on Wednesday so you can see the type of specific details that we shared with those various offices and representatives, and we'll be available to take questions as well. So hope you all can make it on Wednesday, and we're grateful for all of you and being a part of this community, and we'll get through this together, right? We're here together and we're sharing this information. EFRU is here as a hub, hopefully for you, and learning more. We're learning too. And we're grateful for the community involvement and all the data that you all send us so that we can continue to advocate. And with that, I will say goodnight. Thank you, everyone, and hopefully we'll see you on Wednesday. Thanks again, Andrew and Krista. And thank you, Jessica, for helping us with the chat. All right. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.